Welcome to the Emerging Screenwriters interview series sponsored by the ISA. And we have our guest today, Rachel McClard.
Hi there.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm really good.
Good. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
I'm going to start with some icebreaker-y type questions just to get us sort of like relaxed and ready to go. What are you watching right now?
I've been binging Reboot.
I haven't seen that yet.
Okay, so good.
Yeah.
Perfect for writers. It's clever. It's funny. I like it that it's sort of an R-rated comedy in the family sitcom space. It's really fun.
Awesome.
That's one. And then A League of Their Own. Mm-hmm. Absolutely love that show. Watched it I think 3 times already.
The whole thing through?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's so good.
You're like, I'm studying this.
Obsessed with it. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Who are your heroes in the film, TV industry? Who do you look up to? Who are you like, this is who I want to be or who I want to work with?
I think the first person that comes to mind is Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I think she's just so incredible. Everything that she touches is amazing. Not that I want to be in front of the camera as well, but I just think that the worlds that she creates, she's very subversive and so smart. And I love that she does both TV and film. I think that's really cool.
So what do you see in yourself from her that like you can pull in?
I feel like I also like to write strong female characters that are very flawed and are trying to battle that. And I think that she does that really well. And I would like to do that myself.
Awesome. Yeah, good answer. Okay, so let's start all about you.
Okay.
Let's start from the very beginning. When did you first start writing or understanding that maybe you wanted to be a storyteller or in that space?
I started writing, as long as I can remember, I've written from little baby Rachel. I was pulling out pieces of paper from the copier, at my dad's work, and I would just write stories on there. And I think the first time I realized that I really wanted to do it as sort of maybe a path for a career, I was in high school and I was a theater nerd. And so we were doing the musical Fame, and my director was like, I want to change like the whole last act and change things up. And I was like, can I do it? Can you give me a shot to like rewrite it? And I rewrote it, and it was amazing to see people perform words that had come out of my brain and that I had developed, and it was so cool. And I was like 17, and I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. So then I went to school. I have a radio, TV, film degree, and I took a bunch of screenwriting classes, and that's really when I started realizing that I didn't want to go the theater route. I wanted to do TV and film.
Let's go back to that moment. I love these moments of like when you're that anticipation of opening night of Fame and knowing that like, okay, my word. What was that feeling like when you got maybe the first laugh or the first, people celebrating your words on that stage? What was that like?
It was kind of like I'd stepped out of my body, which was also weird because I was in the play and I was playing one of the lead characters' mother, so I had like dyed like my hair gray, and it was very method acting. And I had this. I decided to have my character take pictures on stage. So it's funny because I have a bunch of photos of me taking like that I developed because this was a little disposable camera that I used, and I actually have a photo that I took of the audience in that moment, and it's kind of cool to look back at that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that. That is amazing. So after you went to college, then what did you do?
So I grew up in the South. I'm from Arkansas originally. I went to school in Texas. When I was in college, and even at the last year of high school, I was like, how do I get to LA and how do I get kind of into that world? And when I was in college, I got to work on some short films, and I had my first like real break into the industry. I worked as a wardrobe intern on a local movie that was filming in Arkansas. And it was so cool to see the whole movie magic happening. And so I think sort of the seed of like, okay, how do I get to LA? I'm still in college. I've got to finish college. I've got to try to, get my grounding afterwards, but how do I get there? And so I figured out right after I graduated from college, I ended up applying to a program where I got to go to the Cannes Film Festival, and I was still living in Dallas at the time, but then I was like, okay, this is the thing. This was so exciting and fun. Within a year, had moved out to LA.
And then what was your first job in LA?
I worked for a writer director. I think I found it on. I found that online, and I just applied, and it was like, I don't know who this guy is, but let's see. And it ended up being Dick Richards, who was a very established older director. He was a producer on Tootsie.
Wow.
You know, I worked in his office, and he would make calls every day, and he was like, I'm Dick Richards, and it was just very interesting. He would make me little cheese sandwiches every day, and I'd pick up his dog poop, and he was developing a feature film at the time, and I was able to give notes, and I actually got to take the script home and like look through it and give him feedback. And he was also directing commercials. He did all the Wilford Brimley commercials for the diabetes. Yeah. Diabetes. And so he every year he would do all of the commercials in like 1 week. He would film them. And so I got to go to Las Vegas and be a PA on set with Wilford Brimley. And
oh my God.
I was like, this is...
You're like, I made it.
I made it. It happened. But yeah.
That's crazy. I feel like so many people have those origin stories of moving to LA, and you know, I was sort of the same way. Like, you get this random job, you're like, what am I doing? Like, looking back, you're like, that was awesome. It was like terrible to pick up dog poop and like get the coffee every day, you know. All the things are the same. Like my boss, this was the same lunch every single day, and I was like, this smell is like, I can't take it. But I feel like those are like the gold that we look back and I'm like, oh man, those were the days.
Those were the days. I mean, it was like just struggling.
Yeah.
And at the time I was also working as a waitress on the weekends, and when that job ended, I ended up working at Warner Brothers. I got in as a temp there, and then I ended up working in the marketing department for I think 8 years. So, you know, I just sort of have done a bunch of different things in the industry.
Yeah. Do you think that's important for people who are, you know, maybe first moving to LA or sort of reconsidering their path or wanting to get into writing and production? Do you think that taking those, even if it feels like it's not the straight path, taking those sort of like side jobs and learning different aspects is important?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think you get so much experience just being sort of a fly on the wall in some scenarios, and you get to see all the things that go into it. When I worked in marketing, I worked in the feature international marketing department, and just seeing all of the things that went into promoting a movie. And I think that even sometimes gives me a little bit of an idea of what I need to work with on my, like I'm working on a feature right now. I'm like, is this marketable? Is that, you know, so you think about those things.
You get to see from different angles
where
you're at as a writer. I love that. Okay, so let's talk about your writing. How would you describe your voice as a writer? And let's just talk about voice in general, because it's such a strange, like, idea of going like, wait, what is my voice? So let's talk about your voice, and then tell me how you figured out how to describe your voice.
Right. For me, I write a lot of strong female characters who, like I said, they're flawed, they're conflicted. I tend to try to write really visually. I think, you know, it is a visual medium, but try to really figure out what people would be watching. When they're reading a script, I want them to picture it in their head and be very visual. I tend to write kind of gritty things that sort of punch you with a surprise, and then you maybe laugh, and then you continue on. I'm a drama writer that likes to put a little bit of comedy into what I write.
Was there anything that you did? Did you talk to people? Like, how did you figure out when somebody says to you, like, what's your voice as a writer? What do you write? Has it always been something that you've known, like, this is at the core what I want to write? Or did you sort of like hone it or figure it out with anyone else?
It's definitely evolved. When I first moved to LA, I was doing comedy, pretty much strictly comedy things. I did improv, I did sketch comedy with a sketch comedy team, did videos online, and I worked with a writing partner, and I kind of once I stopped writing with my writing partner and kind of got out of the comedy scene, I was like, what do I really want to write? What do I kind of like watching, but also what are kind of the stories that I want to tell? And I started looking through all the ideas that I have and the things that I wanted to write, and I was like, these aren't comedies. They may have like a comedy element to them, but they're not really comedies. So I started writing more of the things that I was drawn to, and I think writing more of what I was drawn to and really getting better at the craft itself helped me develop the kind of voice that I have. I don't think it just started out that way. I think that it's taken a little bit of time to finesse and figure out the kinds of stories that I want to tell. And I think having the comedy background also enables me to have characters that aren't just so dramatic all the time. It's not real life. Real life is, there's, even in a dramatic situation, there's comedy, there's a little bit of lightness to things. And so I think the comedy helps inform that as well. And I think that gives me a specific voice. I think it's a little bit different than what I used to write, and it kind of sort of informs the kind of things that I want to write in the future as well.
That's great. I love that you were in the improv world and the comedy world, because I think that as for anybody, honestly, I think putting yourself in that space and having to improv, it's such a good tool for writers. What do you think you learned from doing improv? Like, what was something that you take with you in all of your writing?
Not being scared of doing that idea and trying it and seeing if it works. And then if it doesn't, being able to, yes and is the big thing in improv. And so doing that in writing when I have a meeting with a creative executive, trying to spin things into a positive. They're like, oh, I don't really like that idea. Okay, well, yes, totally get that. But what about this instead? And trying to kind of be light on your feet and sort of be able to go around a situation and figure out what is, even with a note, if somebody gives you a note and you're like, you can't really be defensive about it. You have to, and that's the same thing in improv. In improv, you can't be like, well, nope, stop, we gotta go back. I don't like that joke. You have to go, okay, let's take it in that direction and see what happens.
Right, you have to mold it in your own, First, how many screenplays have you written, or TV episodes or pilots? And then let's talk about your first screenplay that you wrote.
Okay. So my first screenplay I wrote, I was in college, and it was it's called True Luck Criminals. It's a kind of a crime thriller, and it's funny because I wrote that first and then I went to comedy, and now I'm kind of back into that. So I did sort of have a little inkling of that's what I like to tell. And I've written, I don't know, maybe 20 scripts, but I think that's a little bit different than what I'd actually show people. What I show people, I have four drama 1-hour pilots. I have one 30-minute kind of sci-fi pilot, and I'm working on a feature right now. I have a couple features that I've written before. I did option a screenplay to New Line, which was a comedy script years ago. So I have a lot of scripts, but I think that that's a little bit different than what I actually show people.
That's an interesting thing to talk about, though. It's that you've written a lot of screenplays, but you only have a handful that you're willing to show. Let's talk about that lesson in terms of like growing as a writer. Why are those forever gone? Are you going to go back to those? Like, why are those, okay, these are over here and these are the ones I'm ready to show?
I've spent the last couple of years trying to find that voice, and I think the voice that I have, it's creating sort of a profile for myself, and like these are the things that I feel are strong. They've been vetted. They've gotten me meetings or a manager, things like that, contest placements, fellowships that have sort of been read by people that people seem to like and be able to tell that voice. And I think that some of the older stuff that I've written, it got me to where I am now. So I don't think many of them would be something that I would bring back. Some of them are comedies and they don't really fit with what I like to write. And I have a feature that I wrote that the idea has kind of been done and done well. So, I think all of that past work sort of has gotten me to where I am now. So I think being able to like distinguish between this was sort of an exercise. These are things that I did and that I'm proud of, but then look at and be like, okay, these are the things that I've, put them in front of my writing group. I've worked so many different drafts and developed them to where I really think that if I show them to somebody, they're going to see, okay, you're a writer. You can write.
Let's talk about where you're at now, because you have a very long list of accolades within even the last year. So can you sort of like run through everything that you've won or been in, recognized for, and then talk about entering those and like putting yourself out there in that respect?
Well, I think where I started really growing as a writer was being able to share my work and share it earlier on. Like I did, I joined a writing group a little over 2 years ago, and I think that sort of helped me develop into like feeling more comfortable about sharing my work. What I used to do, I would write something, maybe rewrite it a couple times, and then try to submit it to something, instead of really diving in and taking the time to like rewrite as much as possible and get it really, really strong. Even just doing like a pass on it for grammatical and spelling things. And in the last couple of years, because I've spent the time to develop my voice, I feel like that's helped me in different contests and being able to talk about my writing in a more professional manner, not just this is a hobby and I like writing and this is a great idea for a script. Last year I won the ISA fellowship for Stowe Story Labs. I have placed in contests from Roadmap and the ISA like table read. I've gotten top 10 and I have a lot of different placements, and I feel like that's just putting your work out there and being able to get recognized for something sort of helps you continue to like drive and like how to make it better. Or if I got semifinals but I didn't get a finalist, like, okay, what were the notes that I got? What were the things that how can I make it better? Looking at it like, is this an overall note, or is it something that, is it an opinion that I can go like, okay, that's an interesting opinion, and that's something that I can like discuss and kind of talk about if somebody asks me about it. You know?
In regards to ISA, you are a top 25 writer to watch in 2022. Yes. What has this year been like for you with ISA in terms of being on development slate, working with the team and having them send out your materials, and how has that been going for you this year?
I think it's been going great. I think that being able to put top 25 writer to watch on my website, I put it, if I send out query letters, or if I reach out to somebody, or if I put it in my bio, I think it does definitely add a little bit of credibility there that didn't have before. I think in terms of working with ISA, I just got one of my projects a shopping agreement through ISA, and I'm meeting with the director this upcoming week that they connected me with, trying to get my work out there in front of people that could understand the kind of writing that I do, and that sort of extra connection that is, I think we look at things like one thing is going to be the thing that makes you become a professional writer, right. But it's usually not. It's multiple things that happen and sort of a path that you take. And yes, there's some people who are going to write one script, they sell it, or they get a development deal or whatever, but most of the time you're going to write a bunch of different things, and sort of one thing is sort of a stepping stone to the next.
What do you like about the ISA community?
I like I've submitted to a ton of writing gigs. I like that they're there and available for me to look at. I think that whenever I do a submission to anything, I look at it as sort of getting to know myself more. Applying to any of the big fellowship programs, you're getting to know you as a writer. It's sort of back to the developing your voice. And so I think the website having, a bunch of different how-tos and about craft and having the writing gigs and being able to have a place where you can put your, synopsis and sort of your poster, and it kind of gives you like, it guides you in the things that are good to have. And I think somebody just starting out or just joining ISA is like, oh, I can create a profile. Oh, I need to probably have it be around this length. And it sort of is a good guide for people, for sure.
Perfect answer. Let's talk about, what do you feel like you're looking for, or what do you feel like you're missing? And there's no wrong answer here.
There's sort of the connections of like agents and managers, and then there's the creative people, and then there's studio, then there's the jobs that are coming in from the gigs. I'm sort of in the stage of my career where I want to just meet a bunch of people and have generals and just talk about writing and get to meet people. And I feel like that could be a good thing for just me personally, is to make those connections with maybe not somebody that would be interested in just a specific project, but like, hey, you should meet this writer, she's really cool. Or Rachel, you should meet with this creative person because they're doing cool things, and maybe you'll get along. Sort of just getting to know people more.
Yeah, making connections, having generals, meeting people. Have you been actively pitching? Are you in that stage yet where you're taking meetings and pitching your projects? And how is that going for you in terms of the strange world of pitching and being an extrovert in an introverted field?
It's something that I've been working on for myself. Last year, probably the year before, I really focused on just like the writing and like trying to find that voice and getting really strong samples to show. And then one of my goals for 2022 was to actually practice pitching more and figuring out how to talk about it better. I did some things with Roadmap. I've signed up for a couple of things that were connections to like creative executives, and just being able to pitch myself one, and then be able to pitch a project really succinctly and clearly. And I've done a lot of work with that. I've taken a couple meetings with managers and being able to pitch that. And I just signed with a new manager, and I think that helped me. The work that I did to put into like practicing pitching helped me in those situations.
Where do you see yourself going in the next year and then 5 years?
I think in the next year, I would love to take a bunch of general meetings. I would love to get staffed. I think that I do have the samples that are strong enough. I think that with the industry kind of changing and smaller rooms, and it's going to be a struggle, which is why I'd like to meet more people to be able to sort of get those opportunities. I think, I always do look at it sort of like a short-term, medium, and long-term. And so for me, getting staffed would be like the next step. And from there, moving up to another level in a room, and then being able to develop a project with a studio or network, and eventually be a showrunner. That's sort of the long term.
Excellent. So you said that you just recently got a new manager. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you feel like a manager has changed for you how you work, or do you feel like it's now you have to work harder? So talk about your relationship now that you have acquired a manager.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that it is sort of, I know that he's working really hard to get me meetings and putting my work out there, and we talk a lot. I wanted to find somebody that really got how I work, which is sometimes I want to talk through an idea longer. Sometimes I'm going to send an email with a bunch of ideas, and just you can reply back with like what you like or don't like. And so I feel like having a manager that sort of gets the vibe of what I like how I like to communicate, and it's making me work harder, but in all the ways that I like to work hard.
Right.
So.
That's amazing. I think that was a really good point, though, that, it's somebody, you're still working really hard, if not harder, but you took the time to find a manager who meshed well with you, that was like-minded with you, that that provided what you were looking for. And I think that that's such an important thing to talk, especially with new people who are looking for a manager. It's you have to find the person that works well with you.
Yeah.
What was that process like for you finding a manager?
I did have a previous manager, and it just didn't really work. It didn't gel. And so I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I did have a meeting with a creative executive, and the project that I was working on with, that I pitched to them wasn't really for them, but they were like, I think that if you got a new manager, you could potentially up the game for yourself. And so I'm going to send your script out to a few people. She sent it out, and within a week I had a meeting, and I had a couple other meetings set up, and my current manager, we just hit it off immediately, and it just sort of worked. So within a week it was all done. So it was a little bit of striking while the iron was hot, but also kind of in my mind of like what I wanted and how I already sort of knew the direction that I wanted to go.
I'm glad you found somebody.
Thank you.
Amazing. What are some lessons that you've learned through the years? The things that you were like, oh, I'm not doing that again. And then, maybe advice that you would tell your younger self, or if you could go back and sort of do it again.
I kind of talked about like having a bunch of work that I'd done previously. I think you have to get those scripts out of the way. Like work on writing, do the work. If you want a career and not just one success,
right,
then you need to put in the work. And so I think, I probably would tell myself, just be patient, just do it, just keep working. I also think that when I was younger, I did sort of want that success. And I didn't focus as much on the work. I just focused on the success and sort of doing the queries and trying to meet people before I was really ready. So I think I probably would have just told myself to be a little bit more patient and just focus on the work. And focusing on the work, which is what I've done the last couple of years, has turned into some successes and a path kind of that I see more progress forward.
It's really great advice. I'm gonna take it. We get to that point where we're like, can we just hurry up here? Like, come on, something happened. And then you have to just like chill and do the work.
Do the work, yeah.
And keep putting yourself out there in the process, but like, kind of just like, all right, the time, come on, Zen.
Yeah. And I think one other thing that I would advise people is to share your work earlier, because I do feel like when I joined a writing group, I hadn't really been sharing my work a lot, and share it early, not just be like, I'm going to finish this and then I'm going to share it with you, but like, this is just an idea. These are just 3 scenes. This is a very rough draft of something. What do we think? And treating my writing group sort of as a writer's room, because we pitch ideas and we talk through things. And I also think reading a bunch of people's scripts that are at your level helps you be able to talk about like what you think isn't working, what is working, what bumped, what didn't, what moments you loved, what you can praise your fellow writers and be like, that was so cool. I want to be able to write like that. So I think if I had done that earlier, that would have probably gotten me to where I am now quicker, because it's been an exercise of, and it also keeps me accountable.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm a huge proponent of writing groups.
Yeah.
I've been in my writing group for 10 years.
Oh, that's great.
And it's where you learn how to receive notes. It's where you learn how to give notes properly.
Right.
It's where you can play and feel like, these are my people. I can say anything while still being thoughtful and constructive. And it's all about the work.
Yeah.
This is like, now we're doing like the actors, the thing where you're like,
inside the actor studio.
What does the thing called? So when you go, no, I'm just going to do a couple questions. Okay, what is your favorite word?
Marinate.
Okay, why?
I like that word. I've always used it sort of as talking about writing. I also like to cook, but marinate. Let me marinate on that idea. Let me think. I need to sit with this for a little bit. And I think for me, writing isn't just sitting in front of the computer and putting words on a page. It's a lot of observing, a lot of thinking about something, being able to visualize it in my head before I can put it down, or listening to music when I walk my dogs, or just like letting it sort of seep in and marinate.
I love that about you because at the beginning you talked about that you're very visual.
Yeah.
And that is the most visual way
Yeah.
of saying, like, marinate. What a visual word to describe,
My writing process.
bubbling
Yes.
and da-da-da-da. I love that. Okay, this one I didn't prep you with, so I want you to throw out the first 3 adjectives you can think of to describe yourself.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Personable, hardworking, and kind.
I love that. What is that pet peeve spelling grammatical error that just drives you nuts every time you see it?
When I see people misspell there, and there, that just drives me bananas. I can't. It's so simple. It's it's something that we've learned since grade school. They're very different. They mean So I think that's probably the biggest. And I'm not like a grammar nerd myself. Like I'm definitely not the best at spelling. Definitely not the best at grammar. But I think that's one that's like we can all agree like it's pretty simple. When I make the mistake too, I'm like, oh my God, what the? How did that happen?
Right.
So
I get that. For me, it's now. It's one, I can't stand loose and lose.
oh yeah,
It says loose and it means lose. I'm like,
yeah,
people, figure it out.
Yeah.
And then my other one is further and farther,
yes,
where once I learned, and I didn't know it most
Yeah.
of my life until becoming a writer. And then I'm like, when people on TV say further, like further down the road,
Yeah.
I'm like, it's farther. Farther down the road.
yeah.
It makes me crazy.
Being from the South, I have some things like that I just don't, I just don't get, or I'm like, so I add like a little folksiness to it and be like, oh, just yonder,
Just down yonder. Go
Yeah.
a little yonder. Okay, last one. If you could be granted 3 wishes, what would they be?
I would like to be able to have a long career writing and working on projects that I love. I would like to be able to afford a home in Los Angeles for my wife and my 2 dogs to live nicely and not be paying rent every month.
Right.
So if I get the first one, that would hopefully come. And,
Do a super fun one. Just
Oh.
throw away.
well, I was going to go like socially relevant.
Okay, do that one.
With,
And then
like-
and then if you had a 4th
Okay.
wish for just like
Okay. More socially relevant, I want everybody to have universal free healthcare. And a fun one, for my coffee to never be cold if I forget it. Just to,
done.
Yeah.
Just gonna get you a little warmer and be like, here you go, I'm a genie. Here is your coffee warmer.
Perfect.
That's hilarious. As a mom myself, that to me, yes, I could, like, I get up and I make it and then I'm like,
where did I put it?
and then I
is it
come
in the
home from
bedroom?
drop off and
Yeah.
it's like cold and I'm like, now I'm
And then
just
you're
put ice
always
in
like,
it.
I'll try it. I'll make it ice, but then it never really is good that way, or put it in the
Right.
microwave, and it's just, eh.
I know, there's nothing like on Sundays I wake up and I can just sit down and drink it's like the small tiny things where
Yeah.
you're just like, wow, I get to enjoy my full
Yeah.
coffee, and then when it's done I'm like, that's it.
That's it.
Maybe it should make
And the
it
second
enough.
cup is never as good as the first. Yeah.
Right.
So
Well, that is the end of the interview. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Rachel,
Yeah.
for joining us.
Thank you.
I feel like I learned a lot about you, and I feel like those adjectives you described about yourself are very true.
Oh,
I think you
thank
are
you.
personable, and you are kind,
Thank
and
you.
from what you talked about, you are hardworking. So I wish you tons of success moving forward.
thank you. So nice.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.